Hi, this is Ed in San Diego. It's 8:14 a.m. here on the 19th of May, and it's a sunny day. Usually in San Diego this time of year, it's called May Gray. The sea fog hugs the coast, but not this morning. I think we're going to have a summer day today. Our very special guest today is a good friend and a client and advisor and a trailblazer, Diane Devitt. Uh, her session today on Global TV talk show Global Meeting Room is about creative leadership, cultivating a culture from clarity to collaboration. And I love that. It's a wonderful graphic, which you can see right there. I want to read this bio. It's really important. Diane Devitt is an accomplished trailblazer in the meetings and events industry, having spent many years directing and designing prestigious live experiences. She continues to influence as an inspirational speaker, educator, and author. Diane empowers others to leverage creative leadership. She's going to tell us what that means. Diane empowers others to leverage creative leadership and creative collaboration in business. Diane is an author and also co-authored Called to Lead with 17 other women. Diane's mantra is no idea is out of reach, and you're going to learn all about that. Welcome, Diane
Well,
Devitt.
thank you, Ed. Thank you very much. Who is that person anyway? Well, I'm very glad to be here, and I'm very glad to share this concept of creative leadership, of which I've been my whole life. And, we grow up with different types of leadership that we learn in business schools: democratic, authoritarian, laissez faire. But it's very interesting when you start to think about what leadership is and all of the different skills that it takes to influence people, to get them to move together, right? So, and to get them to work together for the success and the mutual success and common good for everyone. So, in my life, my whole world has been based around creativity, and so it intrigues me to do research and to speak about this concept of creative leadership and exactly what does that mean and how can it help people to accomplish their goals and accomplish their own personal vision. What is it all about? And it starts with ideas. Creativity starts with ideas. We all have them. We all have so many of them every day. But as many as we have are as many as leave. Yes? So, how does the leader take and harness that brain power with all the people that are involved so that they have a common purpose and work together seamlessly? And that is, I suppose, every manager, every director, every company owner's dream, is to have that dream team that know what the next person's going to say before they even say it. But I have a theory that goes back to our friend Maslow, you know, and his famous hierarchy of needs. And I have lived by this. This is one of the things I've been teaching for so many years is how does Maslow fit into creative leadership? How does Maslow fit into creative thinking? How does Maslow influence us as people? Well, to me, he sort of epitomized and summarized what I call the whole person in the hierarchy of needs. I mean, when you think about it and you start at the foundation of it all, the physiological needs, the air, the water, the food, the shelter, we all need these, right? Arianna Huffington, how she devoted her life to sleep after falling asleep at her desk from lack of sleep. So those foundational self-care things and needs are integral for anyone to build a strong foundation. And as you go up the hierarchy and you start to think about it, safety and security. When you don't feel safe and you don't feel secure, you feel fearful. You have doubt. You're constantly on the lookout. You don't trust your own judgment in business. If you're not feeling comfortable in an environment, you're only going to be robotic and you're going to respond with what was asked and what you perceive to be expected as the answer, not so much what is in here. So safety and security is integral in the environments that people set up for their workers.
We're talking about psychological safety.
Without a doubt,
Yeah.
psychological safety, mental safety, intellectual safety, that I can express my opinion and it will be listened to, which we'll speak about in a minute. And then the concept of belongingness. I mean, I don't expect Valentine's Day every day in business, but the concept of belongingness is critical. We all want to belong to something. That's the bottom line. And feeling like you do belong to a team. This is what Maslow brought out in this. Where do we belong? Do we belong in a family structure? Do we have a friendship? Do we have business? It's the balance of it all. And when you have those three categories, that all starts leading up to, I feel good about myself. I have confidence. I have self-esteem. You know, I grew up in a neighborhood as a child. There were 110 children on the street where we grew up. 110, one block. And we played in different areas of the block, depending on whose father was sleeping that night, who father worked during the night and had to sleep during the day. And the reason I bring that up to self-esteem is that being out there with so many children and having to learn give and take, having to learn all of the, excuse me, getting along with each other, respecting one another, all of that builds up to how good we feel about ourselves. That self-esteem starts when we're very young children. When I speak about the concept of volunteerism in my work, I use these 3 R's, recruit, retain, and reward. And that's very similar to business and how you bring on people to work with you. Fine, you recruit them. How do you retain them? Right? And I know you've had sessions in this, especially with other guests on the show, of that's the biggest thing with human resources, right? Is retaining good talent and rewarding them based on who they are, what their level is, and what contributions they made. But all of that leads up to the very top of this, the top of the triangle, which is self-actualization. It's basically being authentic. And that's what interested me with this, because this is where creativity lies. So the concept of creative leadership is not just about, oh, recognize the person who comes in and is a plethora of ideas. No, it's not that at all. It's building the foundation for people to feel safe and secure that they can voice their opinions. They can freely give their insight. They can offer suggestions. However, the protocol for suggestions is established, which is different for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, I want to ask you a question. If we can go back to that slide so we can
Sure.
look at the top of that triangle.
Okay.
So this is, let's talk about this, okay, briefly.
Sure.
Self-actualization, meaning the authenticity. You're not phony. You're
You
not put,
realize you're right. You realize who you are. Your actual self.
yeah, and you feel safe to do that.
Correct.
That people around you, they expect you to be professional. They expect you to excel. Otherwise, why should they pay attention? Why should they give you the respect and the platform for your good works? Well, it's
Exactly.
because you've earned that. And somebody is a believer in you enough to pay you or to set it up for you to be a leader at this particular event. And you therefore have the self-confidence and the knowledge and the ability to apply yourself, your knowledge, your
Exactly.
beliefs to
Exactly.
help others.
It, all this is actually, Ed, as we delve into just this section, it's basically playing in the sandbox with your colleagues. And if you notice that Maslow goes on and talks about playfulness and meaningfulness. Now, I grew up in a time when people came and they teased you, and we have different protocols now, how far to go, which I am 100% in support of, how not to go. But sometimes I think people misunderstand that it's still okay to tease somebody. I mean, if I have a bad hair day, there's no hiding it. And I wouldn't mind if you came and said to me, "Oh, Diane, hair looks interesting today." I mean, that you're not is not offensive to me. That shows me that you're playing. Plato, in my book, What Color is Your Event? And I wrote that as a resource guide for creative thinking for marketers and people who plan events. I refer to Plato because Plato, in his Republic, actually cited the importance of play. And again, play for a child is different from play from an adult. But we all have to lighten up a little bit. So this top of this triangle, this all of these actualization is all about acceptance, basically. It's creating an environment that diversity and whoever that person is, whatever that situation is, that environment is welcoming and is supporting their involvement.
So this is all about projection, personal projection.
Could be. Yep, could be. And when the concept of mental illness and all of the awareness that we're developing and we're speaking about nowadays, okay? Uh, we never know what's going on in someone else's mind. But I will say this, that the elements that are on top of this triangle are signs of a healthy mind. Someone who can joke around, someone who can laugh at themselves, someone who participates, someone who has ideas that offer them freely. They show confidence. They show a sense of self-esteem, self-awareness. So when I use this, I don't take this lightly. And the concept of creative leadership is, as we'll see, it's basically for the leader to accept the art and the skill of shaping the vision and the outcomes by influencing and being intentional with how you communicate with your people. That's the formal definition, but it all comes from this developing that whole person and recognizing their needs as people in order to be the best they can be.
So let me go back to what you said at the very beginning of this program about your book. What color is your meeting?
What color
And
is your event? Yep.
yeah, and so here we have this array of colors right here.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the purple on the bottom and the yellow on the top. Now, to me, uh, yellow is sunshine and bright light. The purple is at the base, um, deep and plentiful, bigger. This is just my own off the top.
Right. Right. Well, the thing is the name of my book, What Color is Your Event, is not literal. It is a metaphor basically, and I used it because many people have meetings and events that are boring. And when you describe someone who's interesting, or a destination that you visited, or a meeting with a friend, you can say she's such a colorful personality, or it's such a colorful place. It's not literal. It's meaning that it's filled with variety. Variety is the spice of life. It's what are you going to do that's going to evoke these emotional responses that are going to create those memories that impact the impressions that any meeting and event give. That was the intent of that title. And is color in itself a part of creating that at any event? Yes. But the colors in this example, I would probably say were more some meaning, because from a yoga point of view, and I didn't want to get off tangents, but from a yoga point of view, purple is the highest level chakra that you have. It's awareness. Blue is about caring, and green is contentment, harmony. Yellow, of course, as you said, yellow is courage, actually, in yoga. So I didn't want, for these, I think we were more arbitrary, but just moving on for the sake of time, I would say, yeah, I'm glad that you picked that up. So, but the concept, as we were saying, is that, excuse me, with the art of creative leadership, it's developing this strategic skill. It's for the manager, for the department head, for the leader to recognize and to take the time. And I know I'm asking a lot of business people, because the stress to produce, to be productive, to fit 10 pounds in a 5-pound sack every day is difficult. But the people who are going to get you to the place that you need to go need your attention. And that starts with you. Maybe you don't give yourself the attention that you need to be the best you can be. That's why I always respect leadership who work with trainers, who work with people, who work with coaches, because we can get so lost in the day-to-day work that we have to do that we don't intentionally want to ignore the people around us. But it's a fine balance, isn't it? When
Yeah.
you're responsible for leading a team.
So let's talk about we. I'm in southernmost Southern California on the Mexican border, and
Mm-hmm.
you're today in Chicago area, and yet we both have a deep blue setting for our imagery here. You at your office, me and mine. And the deep blue to me is great for TV, number one, because it's deep. It draws you in and it doesn't make you step back. It brings you closer because although it's dark, the backgrounds. It is beautiful, malleable.
Good. Well, the deep blue is also a very it's a very executive color because it's it speaks to being the best you can be, you know. But let me go over, and if it's okay, I'll just move on, and because we got a lot to cover today um, in this. But anyway, so when I work and I do the training for creative leadership, I work with 5 steps. And those are the 5 steps that I just like to review for your audience so that they get an idea of what
Okay.
is included in this. And as I said here, as creative leaders, they don't manage, they teach others to see possibilities and lead with purpose. Now, I'll just say one thing here is in most companies, the majority of companies, people have to take various personality tests, DISC, and what form, basic, what is your strengths, a contributor, or a collaborator, this and that. There's also a discipline that is called psychogeometrics that helps identify the person from shapes, whether you're a triangle or a circle, which I prefer. But whatever your audience and whoever the listener is to this, and however you've been put in a category, just understand that everyone is a little bit of everything. And that is the responsibility, again, of a manager and managing people, is to understand whose strengths can contribute at specific times, because we all have them and we all have our place. But just sometimes we have to wait for that puzzle piece to fit in. So the first of the C's, the 5 C's that I speak about, is clarity and being sensible. And the reason I bolded the concept of sensible here is that nonverbal communication speaks the loudest. 90% of our communication face to face with each other, especially in person, because we feel it, are all sensorial. We make a perception of someone in less than 7 minutes when they walk into a room, if we're going to like that teacher or we're going to like that person or not. It's just so visceral. It's something inside of us. And so that is the first thing, that body language and the way people can react is all about sensory development. And the reason I put these little orange cones here is just to remind me of a story too, to share with you. Is I was producing a major event for one of the top universities in Boston, and my team organized. I said, yes, we need traffic cones. And of course, we were talking about proper traffic cones that are, 3 feet high, however it was. And when we arrived at the university, the person in charge, I said, well, we'll send staff. We have a truck. We'll pick them up. We needed 100 of them. She said, no, I'll go get them. I can manage. Oh, I thought that she had a team helping her. And she came back carrying these little tiny cones. I didn't even know they came in that size. They were like ice cream cone size. And I thought, oh my gosh, I got 2 hours before 5,000 people are coming. And these cones were to separate and help us keep order. So that was a big scramble. That's a whole nother story of how we ended up getting them ahead of time. But Home Depot came in very handy. So the bottom line with this is the clarity is, if you have a team that's working with you, which I manage teams through my whole 35-year career in events all the time, it is absolutely critical to be clear with your initial objectives and goals, why you're doing something, what needs to be accomplished, what is realistic to be accomplished based on all the smart concepts that we know that are related to objectives, the time and the relevance and all of that. For people to think creatively, they need to understand why. That is the roadmap that helps their brain focus. I have one person who worked with me once. I said, yes, we for certain tickets or certain things, we need a a case that can be the size of holding a sandwich. Okay, I got it. So give people an analogy, give them an example, give them something that they can simplify in their minds and get that visual. That's where the nonverbal comes in, the visual understanding of what ultimately the objective is, so that you can turn this into that. So the clarity starts with clarity. The second one is commitment. Now, I've heard some horror stories over the years, from people who've managers and department heads and business owners basically just come in, say hello, and that's it. There's no feeling of commitment. So therefore, the people, the employees, they don't feel that dedication. They don't feel that loyalty from their supervisor. How can it be expected of them? So any changes that come up, or any requests that come up, and that's why I love the chance and the change, because there's a chance that that person is not going to give it their best. They're not going to work from the top of the triangle. They need to feel the trust. They need to feel the trust that what they participate in and what they produce is going to be recognized. Again, the three R's, the recognized and rewarded, and reward could be thank you. The two words, right? Thank you. Good job. Appreciate it. That's it. That's all people need for a sense of satisfaction. The next C is contribute. So we have be clear, be committed, and then inspire people to contribute. So I love this. I put this concept, Ed, this inspire innovative approaches. My team once, we had to think of a very complex solution to a client's request. And so what did I call the egg day? I went into work and we had a big whiteboard, and I literally drew an egg and I wrote, have an exceptional day, EGG, the rest, exceptional day. And I left it. And 3 or 4 hours later, when I went back to this board, I was like, holy mackerel. The whole board was filled up. Everyone participated in this. It became a graffiti with a cause. I never knew there were that many words. Example, exemplary, existential, all these EX words that were EGG, and they all get. Now, what was that? Was that a distraction? No. But that was a stress release. That was a way to get the team to let off a little steam, percolate some ideas, have a little fun, and create an atmosphere that was non-judgmental. Some people drew little figures. It was wonderful. And so this contribution goes back to what we were initially saying, which is respect differences in personalities and what everyone contributes. Some will contribute and draw a red egg, and others will draw a green egg, and some will draw a yellow egg. It doesn't matter. We want to invite people to be curious. We want to invite open questioning. We want to support, as leaders and as managers, a non-judgmental brainstorming. That if I say cat to you and you respond dog, I go, okay, Ed. Maybe dogs are on your mind, and maybe that would lead us to a path that we haven't seen before. Sometimes people who have such gifts see things that others don't.
So when you say non-judgmental,
Yeah.
that's a big word. That's uh MBA word, or even PhD word. Non-judgmental means anything goes.
Um, no, I don't think non-judgmental. I related this in terms of brainstorming. So in a sense, anything goes. So when you do a true brainstorming and you conduct it, and that's a whole uh, exercise in itself, right? I mean, when you do a proper brainstorming, you start out with structure. You start out with, okay, here, why are we brainstorming? Because we have to find X solution, or we need X concept to think about. So that's that. But what is our objective from finding new solutions? In other words, why are we looking for new solutions? Why are we looking for innovation? And then what do we need to accomplish? So in the concept of brainstorming, for example, sometimes when I work with groups and I'll do a very simple exercise in brainstorming, and I'll use color because that's my thing. And I'll divide the different groups into, this is a blue group, this is a red group, this is a yellow group, so on and so forth. Come up with 10 items in 3 minutes that relate to that color. It could be blue fish, blue man group, blue potato chips, blue moon, the song, or whatever. The bottom line is the purpose of that exercise is non-judgmental. It's a brain exercise to sort of give ourselves that oil in our brain, like the Tin Man did in The Wizard of Oz, to get us to think freely and non-judgmentally. We're the judges of our thinking before anyone else. People hold in their ideas and their concepts rather than share them sometimes. And so a simple, playful exercise, like name 10 things in 2 minutes, is permission for people to just think and be authentic, think as themselves. That's what I meant by that. And that's
That's
the proactive versus the reactive environment.
interesting.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And some companies over the years, they've had rooms that they've designated for the creative thinking or creative thinkers, or go in here and write on a blackboard, or do graffiti, or color, do a coloring book. And again, I'm going to go back to the nonverbal communication. When you're stuck on an idea, believe it or not, taking a colored pencil or a marker and drawing and doodling, I'm a big doodler, actually helps your brain funnel ideas through, because it takes distractions away and it gets your ego out of the way. It gets those little things that block us out of the way.
So an idea just popped into my head. Would you encourage the C-suite to step into the back of the room while this is going on and to not spy, but to be there?
Yes, I would. And I would encourage them to be part of it if they wanted to, depending on who they are, how big the company is, what the concept is. Because with some of the executive level events that I've produced, the C-suite level events that I've worked with, and this is what also was the impetus for me to work with that level on this topic, is because I understand what the responsibilities are of senior management. But I also know that many times in my work, I'm the messenger that delivers how people really feel and how they're thinking to the C-suite. And I'm the one that says a lot of the people out there are filled with fear to come to you to share this concept, but I'll share the concept with you. Because I know as a leader, that's the biggest gift that I can give to someone.
And that's the
To
purpose.
know what's going on. Pardon me?
That's your purpose, to win the trust of the C-suite, to communicate what the C-suite wants
Right,
everybody else
exactly.
to know.
And that's exactly where where this work is beneficial. That's exactly where it's beneficial, is that it's innocuous, but it solves and it aligns goals because it brings things out that might not have been brought out before in a very non-judgmental, effective way, positive way. Yes. So the next C is all about creative thinking. Is so you have your clarity, you have your commitment, you have your contribution, and then you go to the creative thinking part, is recognizing after that brainstorming what the group dynamics are and how people work together. You could say, and then it's up to you to say, hey, I thank you for your contributions. You don't want to point anyone out because it's an equal playing field when this is happening. But the concept, again, to do this is take that brainstorming, take those ideas that are coming out, and then relate them back to the business objectives and goals so that the strategy, the how are we going to accomplish this, can be focused on. And that's sort of the next step of it all, is implementing the concepts that come up. And I put a phrase here, which I thought would be interesting for you too, is use friendly competition to challenge winning behaviors. Everyone likes a good race. Everyone likes a good football game, and then you shake hands at the end because why? If you have a friendly competition, okay, so whichever group comes to the most solutions fastest gets a free lunch or gets lunch with the ball, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be something huge, but there should be some sort of incentive for people to work in teams to keep going, to get things done. So I think that competition is healthy if it's controlled. I don't believe in competition that's passive aggressive or that causes people angst or fear or getting back to that low self-esteem because so-and-so did better. That's not what this environment is. Is that?
Well, good luck.
Yeah, good luck is right. Well, you know what? It's I've seen it work many times through team building. I've seen it work, and this is what I bring to the table is nearly 40 years of observing human behavior, regardless of the level. When it comes to playing games and competition and me first, how environments are structured, how teams are formed, how rules are made and guidelines are made are ways to help people stay in line. Now, that's in a euphoric world, and I realize that because in most worlds and in most people, they want to just, wipe out the other guy. Well, it depends what kind of an environment and what kind of company, what kind of atmosphere the leader wants to maintain.
So when you have this kind of attitude and environment, you as the organizer, you have to decide how to behave or what kind of behavior to encourage without saying, you cannot do this, you cannot do that, we want you to do this.
Right.
But how do you communicate all that?
You exemplify it.
Examples.
You exemplify it. I mean, I can speak for myself, right? I mean, of course, I was competitive. Excuse me. Of course I was competitive in business to win to win award, to be awarded to produce events and to do this. That's the fun of it all. I don't think in my life, I've been through many different episodes where it wasn't fair. But life is not fair. Business is not fair. Business is business. It's all about, again, it's all about the people. Now, I'm not ignorant to the fact that there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of competition in certain companies, that it's being on a battlefield for people. But I don't think that's the person I'm working with in that case. If that's the environment that someone chooses to instill fear, to instill hostility, then there's no way that I can change that. I worked with a company that actually had that environment. The CEO kept the 4 divisions, the 4 silos, totally independent of one another. He retired and a new CEO came in. And I sat with the CEO and the CMO, who have the top 3 people. And we discussed, how are we going to get these 4 silos to work together? Because the new CEO, he saw possibility, he saw opportunity, and he saw so many innovative concepts that could be produced if silo 1 worked with silo 3, silo 2 worked with silo 4, and so on. If they all knew each other and spoke with one another, they could recognize their individual talents and what they had to offer. And so over the course of the next 3 or 4 years, we developed various events to bring these 4 groups together, till finally, I remember one meeting, it was a break after the general session, and the CEO came over to me and he said, I have never seen John speaking to Mike. I have never seen Ed speaking to Paul. He said, extend the break and let people just talk to one another. And that is the power, by the way, and that goes back to my work, is the power of the meeting, as well-intentioned, deliberately produced, where you have clear objectives and goals and you design an environment that supports them. And so the new CEO, he was all about, last but not least, collaboration. He was all about bringing that group conscious together, ideating through shared visions and focus. And I will tell you the end of the story, because sadly, they did so well when they started to work intra silos that the company was bought out. And too bad, because it was an enormous company and there was such good people working there. That is what I believe in. That's what I believe in. So again, business is business, but yes, it's about collaboration. So putting together that collective intelligence, that's where I come from. And the companies that exude this, they're the ones that always get awarded best company to work for. And it can be as simple as a shoebox in a department of, put your ideas here anonymously and recognizing them all, or however people choose to do this. But the concept is to recognize people and reward success. It doesn't have to be big. It'd be great if it was big. Everyone loves a bonus. Everyone loves a raise. Everyone loves that recognition. But the friendly competition and keeping people stimulated is the responsibility. And I love my friend Albert Einstein, because his quote is, creativity is intelligence having fun. And that is what I stand for, Ed. So people, thank you. People have a choice of how to manage. It's not easy in this competitive world. And again, from where I sat and I look at different business sectors, working with a VC company and a financial company and working with a manufacturing company, an entertainment industry, all different cultures. But the one commonality is people and treating people well. And of course, nowadays, it's a whole different ball game, isn't it? People get laid off via texts or emails. They're working there for as long as their talents can be used. But I do believe that there's something to be said for loyalty and finding good people. And a creative leader is not afraid to stand up to that. How do you turn constraints and challenges into collaborative opportunities and enjoy the process? And I will share this too, because I know, like, as you pointed out, and you said it's not easy. I know a woman, one of the women I know, she had an amazing job, amazing company, good company, I should say, top financial company, but all the money in the world did not keep her in that position because she wasn't working in an environment where her immediate boss was recognizing just a thank you and seeing her work. So creative leadership can be interpreted as different as the people who aspire to use the tools that it provides. But it is all about the whole person. So thank you for letting me share some tidbits about that. And I hope that it helps people. And yes, this is the book, Called to Lead, just to show you. My chapter is on the creative leader. It's just a personal journey. And I hope that everyone who's listening embraces whatever type of leadership can help them to support and develop the people who they're responsible for. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Diane Devitt. I want to take this opportunity to read out loud what you have written here, the last paragraph. Creativity is recognizing the personal power that comes from the whole person, is listening to that little voice in your head and trusting in yourself that it has value and will lead you to what works and what doesn't, knowing that the process will always find a way. So that's a real positive message. And I thank you. I want to now say thank you for these beautiful displays. It's really been a great learning experience. If you'd like to take down the share and we just
Yes.
get bigger, that's
Yep.
great. Oh, there you are. Great. So, Diane, about executive presence in the context that you were just describing with Maslow's thing and hierarchy of needs. I'm sure most people have forgotten whatever you were just talking about, but the images are there for them to go back in and look at and recapture the words that came from those images, for those images. Executive presence. Now, translating that whole webinar that we just experienced with you, how do people who don't have a self-image of being an executive presence, how can they learn that?
They can work with me.
That's a good feed. That was a good feed. We didn't rehearse this.
They can work with me. They can work with me because that's a whole different topic of conversation, I think.
in the next edition
in the
of
next edition.
Global TV Talk Show, coming soon to a screen near you. um, so Diane and I have discussed doing a series on executive presence and about how to learn that without thinking you're going Hollywood.
Well,
But
yeah.
that's what you need to learn.
Well,
You don't,
executive presence in a sense of creative leadership is one topic. Media presence and how you are perceived online is another topic. So we might speak about both.
yes. All right. Well, stay tuned. We welcome your feedback. You could reach Diane Devitt easily. That's uh, DIANNE Diane Devitt on
.com.
LinkedIn. Yeah, on LinkedIn. And she's easy to talk with, as you could tell, and listens. And I'm really happy. We've known each other, I don't know, more than 10 years, I think, long time. And we've done a number of broadcasts together, as you could tell, audience, you could tell the ease of comfort here. So that is a learned asset. And you can learn how to do that too by watching more of global TV talk shows on YouTube. Feedback is wanted by me as well. I listen and learn from it. And you have to tell me if you don't want me to quote you on that feedback, because if it's good, I'm going to use it. But if you don't want me to use that, that's cool too. Just tell me. And I respect that. So you could reach me at the following email: editor, it's all one word, editor, global business news at gmail.com. Thank you for
Thank you,
watching.
Ed. Thank you, everyone. Good
Thank
luck.
you. Come
Thank you.
back.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.